in the chat, and we'll try to catch them as we can. And without any further ado, Scott, take it away, buddy.
Hey, everybody. How y'all doing? So who would have thought at the beginning of the year we'd be having this session via Google and not live and in person at Pinewood Studios? I don't think anybody would have got that. Or I would have been down there in Savannah with y'all and doing this whole thing. So, it's been a real interesting journey for all of us. I'm sure you're right in the boat, and fall looks to be even more interesting, doesn't it? So just so you know, I mean, I work at the Board of Regents, University System of Georgia. We don't have all the answers either. So, it's just going to be a work in progress. We're all humans. We'll all figure it out. But I think, it's been an interesting journey for me anyway this summer. So just real quick, Scott Votaw, I'm the director of production at the Georgia Film Academy. My video screen on here is so tiny, I can't tell if you can see me or not. So hopefully we're all good. I'm sitting on stage A down at Pinewood Studios, where we have the Georgia Film Academy. And have some of y'all been down here for training at that facility? Well, then you know it. Great. Awesome. So I'll talk a little bit about it as a tour. And I think maybe, Tom, if anybody types in a question, can you articulate it? That way everybody can hear it. It's on the recording and all that, if that works out.
Absolutely. I got you.
Okay, cool. Because I still don't have that part turned on yet. And so instead of taking a risk that I'll turn myself off, I'll just keep going. So my background a little bit, from some of you guys met me when I was down there. I even see a few familiar faces. David Limbach, I remember you there, and some others that are here. So I can't see everybody on the screen, but good to see you all again. So my background is in film and television production. I worked 27 years in the entertainment industry on varying stages. I started sweeping stages down at Raleigh Studios in Hollywood. And probably the biggest thing that happened to me down there is I was walking out one of the stages one day, and Charlton Heston walked by. And I just was sitting there with my broom, just looking at him. And he was very nice and cordial and polite. But that was when I kind of realized, like, oh crap, this is like really freaking Hollywood here. This is fun. So I had a great experience, worked my way up through the industry. Was on the directorial team for Power Rangers for Saban Entertainment for the first season. We created that show. Also worked with George Lucas and Ben Burt on Young Indiana Jones Chronicles television series. I've done about 25 feature films, TV series. Okay, I'm going to date myself, but some of y'all might remember it because you have gray hair. I'm thinking you will remember some of these guys. Anybody remember Silk Stockings with Mitzi Capture and Rob Estes from 90210? Okay, so I worked on that. Veronica Mars. All right. And what was it? Renegade with Lamas, right? Okay, so those are some of the shows that I got the chance to work on in and through the AD department, which is assistant director, part of the DGA. Then I went on to produce and line produce a lot of feature films, create content. I was vice president of production for 7 years for Classic Entertainment. We did a lot of direct-to-video. I did 2D, 3D animation, some cutting-edge technology for them. Then I went on to own my own company for over 5 years, where we did motion capture, computer animation, and post-production, complete everything from scoring, sound effects, all of that, mostly for animation at that time. After that, I worked in France on a couple of TV series, animated kid series, and then went on to produce a movie in China for about 1.5 years. I was over there producing an animated feature called Through the Mobius Strip. Yeah, riveting, let me tell you. I don't think it ever screened here in the United States, but it was a cool experience. It was an Asian market product. But my background, so it's pretty diverse in there. And then now this is my 10th year in education, believe it or not. I start my 11th year in July, if I make it that long. So I know how you all feel that way, right? Are we gonna do this another year? But this has been kind of fun. So don't add those numbers together and try to figure out how old I am. because it just doesn't do you any good. It doesn't do me any good either. But I've been doing this a long time. So I came to the University System of Georgia Board of Regents kind of as the expert in film and television production, and done a lot of content creation, worked for the technical college system. And there's a brief rundown of my background. If anybody wants to ask specifics, you can. And yes, I did a Snoop Dogg movie. If any of you guys dug around through my background, it was called Hood of Horror. And yes, it was every bit as bad as the name sounds. No, by the way, I did teach high school for a little bit. And that was the number one thing my students wanted to know was, did I smoke pot with Snoop Dogg? No, the answer is no. I was working. That was a job. So they do draw the line. But anyway, that's a little bit about me and what I've been doing here. I'm super excited to be part of this collaborative with the University System of Georgia, the Technical College System of Georgia, and now all of our secondary education folks. I'm from here, guys. I'm from Georgia. I grew up in Griffin. If you know where Griffin, Georgia is, south of Atlanta, north of Macon. So I'm from this area, but there was no film industry really here. So I packed up my car and I think I had about $1,000 in my pocket and I drove to California and I figured out how to get in the industry. Well, we don't have to do that anymore. We have a great program that trains students to work right here in Georgia. And when we get back after this, the pandemic, I think you're going to see a huge boom in production here. And we'll cover that in a few minutes. We'll talk a little bit about that. But as you know, the whole industry worldwide is shut down. So, I mean, are you guys aware of that? That, I mean, there is no production. I think Iceland is producing stuff, but, they only have like 60,000 people in the whole country. So I guess that you can isolate much easier when you're in that environment. But the major production hubs here in Georgia or in the United States are California, number one. Number two is New York, and we're right underneath them. So, and Georgia. And there's nothing going on. And considering what's going on in those cities and in the areas, Georgia is really appealing right now. If you can think about it, we don't have the population mass that New York and Los Angeles have. We don't, there's just a lot more area here to spread out into. And I think people feel really comfortable being in this environment, that it's safer as well as, a little bit easier to shoot in. So from anecdotally, the different studio heads that I've been talking to during this break have said that the phone's ringing off the hook with companies wanting to come and shoot and work here in Georgia. So I think we're going to see a huge uptick after this is over of opportunities for students coming out of our programs to be able to work. So you guys are at the, really, you're where the rubber meets the road for a lot of these kids. You're whether or not they're going to understand what this industry is about and where the jobs are. And I remember when I went and did a small stint at Griffin High School. I was asked by the superintendent of schools, who I happened to go to high school with here in Georgia, asked me to come in and help build a program over at Griffin High School. I remember being in that environment. It's not an easy environment to work in sometimes. I mean, you have a real mix of students that want to do it and some that are forced to be in your class because they had nowhere else to go or their behavior problems, and you're the only one that can make them toe the line. So with those kind of things, it makes it difficult, but realize you're really the first line of getting these kids interested in this industry. And I would guess, is anybody here come with a film background? Did anybody work in film? I know a lot of people work in television. They worked in, broadcast and some of the other arenas, but has anybody actually worked in film? Do we have anybody that's on the call? Okay.
I did a few years, maybe 3 or 4, working in productions in Savannah area.
Okay, and who was talking? Because I can't see who that was.
This is Zach Page. I'm a film instructor at Savannah Arts Academy.
Awesome, dude. Welcome. We're doing a lot of work right now to come down to your area to open Georgia Film Academy training hub down there. There's a big public-private sector partnership that we're working on here at the state that's going to put film studios down there in Savannah. So you'll hear about that pretty soon, coming out in the news in the area. But the goal is to get all the local schools up and operational with a full GFA course load down there for colleges. It also means that we can do more support for the secondary education. So we'll be looking for you down there, Zach. So I should probably ask him to answer this question. What is the main difference between television and video production and feature film? And like maybe even what's the definition of film and television production, so that there's you guys get an idea of what the difference is between those. Can anybody care to want to jump in and try to articulate that?
I'll say that everything we do is primarily on location film production. We don't have a studio, so we really focus on cinematography, lighting, and it's everything's much more mobile. But it's a different beast entirely. You aren't dealing with 2D stages, so it's much more mobile, I'd say, first off.
Yeah. I think if the way to look at it is this. I mean, when we talk about film and television production at the Georgia Film Academy, what that really means is major motion pictures, right? Number one. Number two is episodic cinematic television. Okay, so what is cinematic television? That's television that's shot in a way that's more like a motion picture. The lighting, the look, the feel, like say The Walking Dead, that's cinematic television, right? So it's shot in a way that looks more like a motion picture. And it's more of the process than anything else. Whereas when you do a video shoot, when you're out, whether you're on location or in a stage area, you usually have a few people that work on it. Most of your people can cross, over the different crafts. You'll have a guy that comes in and knows about grip. He knows about electric. If he has to, he can push the dolly if you guys do a doorway dolly in a shot. And he might even be able to do your craft service for you. So really what that is people do a lot of crossover into different crafts. In the film and television industry, it is highly regulated with the unions, and you do a specific craft. If you're in lighting, you do lighting. You don't do anything else. It's not your job to do anything else. You specify in that. And so they spend a lot of time with the look of the piece. So you'll take where you might, end up trying on a major motion picture, even like Avengers, you may shoot a quarter of a page, which is 15 seconds of content, and it might take 2 days. 2 whole days of work to get that look in that piece. In video, when you get down to the levels of doing that, you can't, it's not feasible to do that in that type of area. So you've got the cost factor is much higher, number one. The production value is what we call it. Number two is much, much higher. What you can do with it. And then the specifics, think about the fact that you've got hundreds of people working in a common goal to get your look across as the director, or your vision as the producer or the writer. You have hundreds of people that work together, and it's heavily communicative. I don't know if that's one of the things we really like to focus on with the students, especially in the secondary area, is learning to work together and communicate. That's so important, because when you get into the workforce, it's critical to make this work. So everybody has to do that. There's also a chain of command. You have to know who your boss is. You don't take orders from the wrong person. And if there's any kind of an issue, you've got somebody that you're supposed to talk to. Smaller projects, we only have maybe 5 to 6 people working on the project. They don't have that same problem, because pretty much it's a small group working. It's much easier to communicate. But you can imagine there were thousands of people working on the Avengers across the street on the Pinewood lot. How do those people communicate? They're never in a same room together. You may have 4 sound stages being prepped at one time. You've got an overall DP that's in charge of the lighting. And he's got multiple crews working different things based on what the schedule is. And then when things change, they have to shift. So it's a real different animal as far as the process. So why do we train the process of film and television for students in Georgia? What's the main reason? The main reason is workforce. If you want to work in the state of Georgia in a meaningful job in film and television, you need to understand the process, the tools, right? And the culture. Those are the 3 big things. So the process of making a motion picture is working in these large groups. It's craft specific. A lot of the things that you guys learned in the GFA training that you did for the secondary education gives you a taste of what some of that is. I don't have to tell you, you know, really everything you need to know in the world is on the internet. I know we already all know that. And so there's so many good things out there you can get to help you, and also in your class, and to better, you know, get your knowledge based on that. But the reason you really want the students to understand the process is they can't work in that environment unless they know the process. Because they walk out of this and that they think they're doing video, which is fine. And there's plenty of jobs in that arena. I think actually we've been training for video and broadcast for years and years and years. And they call film, they say film. Like I know in the AVTF, it's got film in there, but it ain't nothing about film. You know, really it's the process and learning about the process of filming. We call filming a lot of things, but I guess it's just because in today's vernacular, shooting, I'm going to go shoot somebody kind of sounds bad. So we're going to go film somebody sounds a little bit more, you know, it's a less violent term. And but really the film industry is not about video. So even though we may use digital content, we may use cameras that capture a digital image, it's still the process of filmmaking. And then we come to the jobs. Does anybody know what the average job is in the film and television industry, what it pays in Georgia? Anybody got that number? Oh, $84,000 a year. Okay. $84,000 a year, that's average. And that's not talking the stars and the directors and all of those people. Those are film workers. So workforce people that have union credentials, that work for IA, possibly they work for Teamsters. And to be honest, a lot of them make six figures. Now, what does it take to do that? 12 to 14-hour days, six days a week very often. It's a lot of hard work, but the job is a great job. But it differs from any other job in the state of Georgia because it's freelance. So now you guys have paycheck, you have benefits, you have retirement, you have all that. The film industry is nothing but freelancers, right? They go to work and they bounce from show to show to show to show. And the companies that are formed to create the shows, they only employ you for 4 to 6 to 12 months. And then you go to work for somebody else. So how do you then, as a freelancer, have the opportunity to have a pension, to have health insurance, to have all those things? Well, that's where the unions come in and why it works really good for our industry. If you're a member of the union, you get based on how many days you put in for your union during that year, you're eligible for health insurance through the unions, as well as they have retirement. They have a lot of other opportunities that you can, you know, they advise you on your 401ks. They help with all of that. Plus, they help maintain a safe work environment for you. So much like your HR department or your teacher union will make sure that the environment you're in is safe. That's the same thing the unions do here. So for our industry, unions work really well. I don't see anything changing in the near future because most of the companies that come here, even though we are a right to work state, have already got a union contract in place, I mean, months and months before they decide to come to Georgia. So that's put in at the national level, and they take these shows internationally as well. So they all work under the same union contract. So whether it's DGA, whether it's Screen Actors Guild, the Writers Guild, IATSE, Teamsters, you know, all of them really kind of follow in lockstep. Some of them have different rules and regulations and things to abide by. But just being on set, knowing those rules, that's a job. So when you work as a second assistant director, knowing all those rules is super, super important. And being able to advise the people that are running the schedule and running them, you know, because they have meal penalties, they have restrictions, all of that. You got to know what all those things are because that represents money. So let's get back to the next part of film that makes it a little bit different is at this level, it's really all about the quality that you're putting on the screen because especially if you're theatrical, and I know things are more going into a, you know, especially these days, are going into a streaming format. Still, they shoot in a very theatrical format, and they take a lot of time making sure that every single one of the frames and pictures they shoot are just perfect. I mean, they scrutinize it. So you figure you've got all your department heads, your art director, you're the guys in charge of set deck, you've got your costuming, your makeup. Everybody's looking at their craft on that screen and just picking it apart, making it perfect. That's what the time is used for, and making sure the camera movements are perfect, the timing is right, everything is just perfect. Because when you put it on that screen, it's up there forever. especially in the digital world. It's out there forever, and people pick it apart frame by frame by frame. So it's real important that if you want a quality product that really represents well, that you know what your craft is. And that's really the basis of what we're doing. So again, I see the job, the number one job that you guys have as far as getting students that are coming up out of school that don't really know where they want to go. They think they want to be in film. Most of them think they want to be writers and directors, right? I mean, that's what probably every student, oh, I'm a director. Yeah, I'm a writer. Well, there's only one director on a set, and occasionally there's more than one writer. But when you're doing a big motion picture like Hunger Games, there were 40 people in the advanced electric crew alone. So they had hundreds of people working in the electric crew, all making six figures. One director. So if the reality hits, I mean, everybody likes to think that they could be a director, but you got to have, you know, a job to work and make a living at. And it's a real honorable job, and it's good money, and it's a good way to support your family. I think it's our job to bring the reality check to these kids, to help them, you know, not squash their dreams of wanting to create something that's really special, because you never know. Your classroom has got somewhere in this state amongst you guys has got an Academy Award winner sitting there that's got the idea, that's got the vision. He needs to be, you know, nurtured as well. But there's probably only one out there. What are all the other kids going to do for a living? So it's our job to make sure we show them where the jobs are and how to get the training and spark their interest to figure out what they're really good at. And I don't know about you, I learned really quick what I didn't want to do by getting in the industry. I worked in the electric department first, and I didn't like that. That was way too much carrying heavy cables and, you know, working 14, 16 hours in the sun. I was killing me. So I ended up gravitating toward what I'm good at, is organization. So I worked in the office, and I worked in the AD department. I was much better at it, and I enjoyed it a lot more. So every student has to figure out where they belong. Some people don't want to be in an office. They'd rather be outside all day. They enjoy that environment better. So it's about helping the student figure out what they're good at and then directing them on where they can go to get that kind of training. Does anybody have any questions on that part before we talk a little bit about, I just was going to show you around the stage and some things that we're doing. And I wanted to talk a little bit about, you know, some of the struggles you guys are going to think about for the fall. So we'll get to that in a second. Are there any questions? No? It's a little bit different. You know, I'm only getting to see about 8 to 9 of you guys, so I can't see everybody's faces. If people are falling asleep because I'm boring, I don't see it. So I guess you'll just have to endure. At least you're not eating in front of me. I guess that's a good thing, right? All right, so a little bit about what we have here on the stage. We've kind of done something that's fairly unique. I don't know about you, halfway through your semester, you guys had to go to an online platform. Is that correct? So did you have to leave? All right, so we did the same with the university system. The only problem is, how do you teach film? I know you're all going to start shaking your heads. How do you teach film in an online environment when you can't have the students doing anything, really? I mean, they got their phones, they've got a few creative things like that. But how do I teach for major motion picture production in that environment? So what we did is we got special permission from the government. We created a whole series, about a 10-page document on shooting protocols for COVID. We worked with the health department, the CDC, and we came up with a protocol on how do we work. And we've been actually shooting on this soundstage for 8 weeks straight. There's no one here today, so I don't have a mask on, but normally we're masked, we're gloves. We go through the protocols. We check our temperatures 3 to 4 times a day. We do social distancing, even with masks. And but we've been shooting. And so what you're seeing here is a complete setup of what we're going to be working on coming soon. Now, this is cinematic. And I know this is probably not gear that you're going to be able to have access to very readily. But you're looking at some lighting pieces here. This is kind of a unique setup. That's a 12 by Griff. And so a Grifflon, and that is used for softening light, bouncing light, reflecting. Also, what we're doing in this piece is we show the background, the behind the scenes, as part of the actual set. So we'll have a person standing here, and they'll be in that environment, and they will actually be working on a live behind the scenes set, and we'll be giving instruction. So as we come in, we have Sorry, this is a little hard for me to see. Does anybody know how I can make my video screen bigger? Anybody know how to do that?
Let me see if I can pin you. See if that helps. Does that help? Did that change anything?
No, I've got me is just super. It's just super tiny. That's all. I don't know how to make it bigger.
I think if you pin yourself, you could do it. If you touch your
okay,
feed.
Perfect. Thank you. See, I knew you guys are educators. You know what the hell you're doing. All right. So I'm really lucky. I've only dropped one 4-letter word so far, so that's pretty good. No students are on this call. Is that correct? Just adult?
100% correct.
Okay, good. Well, I may just let it go. So as you can see here, we've got a dolly. This is an industry standard pneumatic dolly. These are some, again, these are things that you're not going to see in and around your classroom. We've put together about a 60-foot track, and that will be one of our cameras. We're actually going to be using 3 cameras on this shoot. Another one of the cameras is covered up right here, and it's going to be doing close-ups. So, and you can see we've kind of staged a few things in the area. There's even a boom that's preset. So in this environment, we've had to figure out how do we shoot in this environment, but we stay COVID compliant. And that's been a real struggle. So what we've had to do is most of it is in pre-lighting, setting your sets, getting everything operational. But what it is our set is behind the scenes, the backside of an actual set. And so what we've done is we've set up lights, we've done it, and then anywhere along the dolly track, which I showed you a minute ago, we've looked at it and we have lit the entire set. So whether the dolly is down at the far end here or whether we're down at the other end, we have a shot that's lit that looks nice. So in the film and television industry as well, we only light what we're going to see on camera. So that's the other part. You don't spend a lot of time working and setting up and doing set deck and painting for things you're really not going to see. So knowing exactly what you're going to shoot is a very important part of the process of filmmaking. When it comes to compliance, we have to be able to figure out how are we going to do this in a safe and secure manner. So if you're on set and you have to be gloved and masked, and you have to maintain social distance. If you do have to work together, there's a certain sanitation protocol that we put into place that has to be done if you're within that 6-foot perimeter, as well as being masked and gloved. So again, we're kind of setting the protocols for the entire for the industry a little bit as we go through this. So I don't know if you see what else we have here. These so for those of you who haven't been here, if you notice, everything here is on carts. This is an electrical cart. It's got lights on it, and it's got distribution. These boxes that are silver are distribution boxes. These are what's get plugged in the wall. So if we move around, I'm trying to see if I've got one. Yeah, let me bring one over here. This is a little awkward for me, so pardon me if it's jolty. All right, so here is what we do when we do our distribution. We plug into the wall. We take 100 amps out of the wall. And we bring it over and we then put it in a distribution box. And I just lost myself here. In a distribution box where we split it out and take it to different places all over the stage. There's dimmers hooked into there. So this whole part, you have to have a trained electrician that knows how to do this and has to balance it, because we have probably 1,200 amps on this end of the stage and 1,200 amps on the other end of the stage. So again, how you use your lighting and what you use is going to be dependent on how much power that you draw. But everything here is very organized, if you notice. And the purpose for organization is that in a moment I can inventory every piece of equipment that's on this stage and get back to production to make sure that we haven't lost anything. Because nothing normally is owned by the production company, it's all rented. Now, the Georgia Film Academy owns all of its stuff here, and we keep all of it on the stage for training. But as you can see, it's very organized, it's very set up. This is exactly what you would see on a normal film shoot, the staging area, and it's got room to walk around between it, so you can do a quick inventory check and you could pull things that you need for production very quickly. So by staging all of this, what we've done is we've eliminated the work of running out to a truck or running back, to the shop to try to find something. Everything that we need to shoot is right here on standby. And that gives us the ability to move very quickly and to change plans very quickly and move forward. we'll walk a little bit over here. I'm going to show you a couple of rigs. So on the inside of the building, we wanted to make the inside where you see that through the doorway and the windows look like nighttime. So again, I don't know how well this translates, but we have a rig up here, and you can tell a lot of the other lights that you looked at look very orange. This one looks a lot bluer. So the reason it looks bluer is we're trying to make it look like nighttime. So if you notice, these lights over here have got a lot of orange in them. These lights over here are more blue. So we did that on purpose, and that's controlled into this area. So when you get back to the camera and you look through the doorway into the set, you're only going to see just a little tiny piece of that set, but it's going to look like nighttime. So as we shoot, we're going to be showing the behind the scenes on the set, as well as all the equipment that takes place when you're doing film production. So a little quick word about what all this is about that we're shooting on the stage. And as you can see, it's very spread out, and it's all set up in advance. So we've got everything we can possibly need for our shoot already pre-set up. Does anybody want to kind of guess why we did it this way, as opposed to doing one setup at a time? Anybody want to guess?
Is it just because the sheer time amount that it takes to get it set up for the first shot?
Well, it is, but this is more because of the environment we're in right now with the virus and social distancing and the mandates coming from the, not the mandates, the recommendations from CDC. We want to keep as few people on site here as possible. So that really means, let's see, how do I unpin that? There we go. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to make it so that I can get people in here. We can work very effectively, but I'm get as much ready. So what I do is I may have 4 or 5 people working in prep for an area and get everything all prepped. But in the day, I can't have those 5 people here. I'll have 1. So now we're working in a slightly different environment. And when we get back full bore, we're going to see some of that. We're going to see a lot more pre-production work, pre-lighting. Do you guys know what a dimmer tech is? Does that name ring a bell with you for our industry? It's a relatively new term. It's all the smart light technology, LED. So what they do is it's programmed by binary code. I don't know if you're familiar with this. Like same thing, the DJ lights, smart light, they move, they twist, they have color temperature changes. Well, the film industry kind of take that up on steroids. They have now a new department called Dimmer Tech, and what they do is everything on a set is pre-lit and programmed into a dimmer board, and the guy that runs it, actually that's the job my son does. He has an iPad, so he's got an iPad and he straps it on his arm, right, and he walks around, and on his arm he can tap in and change every light setting on the entire set from an iPad. So what that's starting to do is there's a whole lot of work in the pre-production side of getting that ready. But like when you walked on the set for Passengers, so you guys saw that movie, Jennifer Lawrence film, right? Where they're stuck on, there's only 2 characters and some robots and stuff like that, right? That are on this giant ship going through space. So you can't have C-stands and stuff all over the place. So what they did is a lot of pre-light and a lot of rigging, and then they can control it from the iPad. So just think of the ease of working. Now we go into this new, era of COVID. That's going to be, how do we do production in that era? It's going to be a lot more of this kind of technology, because I can come in and put everybody in masks and gloves and take days to pre-light and get it ready, and they can go away and go get another set ready, while I'm working on this set with just one person that has this, and then one electrician in case there's an emergency sitting on the side out of the way with mask on. I don't have wads of people standing around set anymore. That's going to go away. You're not going to see that where you've got 30, 40, 50 people standing around while we're shooting. It's going to have to be more pre-production and setup, and then groups of people will come in. If there's a problem, they'll stop, they'll clear the talent. The craft will come in, do its job, go back out, bring the talent back in. And there'll be a certain amount of cleaning and sanitizing that goes with that. So what you see behind me is the creation of a new course. And when it's done, we will be happy to send it out, because you're welcome to have your students log in and go through it when you get back in the fall. It's called a COVID compliance course. And what that does is it's going to show how protocols from the CDC and the health department apply to our industry. So there'll be a class they take. It'll be online. It's absolutely free. Anybody can take it. And we're encouraging production companies, people that are in the industry, to take this course and get certified by the GFA, the health department, the CDC, in that I understand what I need to do to be safe in my industry. So I think, again, we'll make sure through Josh Lee that all this information gets out to you guys when we get ready to go. But it would be great for the students to see that. And it's applicable to other things besides this. I think it's just going to be interesting for them to see how the industry is going to change. So that's what we're currently shooting back here. But we exercise the actual protocols while we're shooting, because it kind of would be hypocritical if we didn't, right?
Hey, Scott, we got a question from the chat. Bill Phelps wants to know, will this new workflow increase the amount of time needed in production?
I would bet you 50% yes. I think we're going to see an uptick. There's going to be costs. They're going to find ways to save money, but I think where they're going to save money is in the script writing. I think in the script writing area, you're going to see them writing things that are easier to shoot, that are more contained, fewer cast members, right? Less. I mean, you're not going to see Game of Thrones right now. You're just not. It's too broad. It's too big. I think in this environment, especially coming out, once we get some kind of a vaccine, once we've kind of taken this and it's become more the norm and not the exception, we'll be able to build up and ramp up. But this could be a massive change in how we do things. I think it's going to be creatively writing scripts that are easier to shoot. So still being creative, still being entertaining, still being fun, but yet a little smarter. I mean, if you can write a whole show around 2 people, think about it. That's kind of cool. And shows have been done that way. But these huge casts, I don't see another Avengers movie. That's going to have to be post-pandemic stuff. I just don't see us having the ability to do that, because the cost. Now, the big companies, they can afford the cost, but still, yes. The answer is yes. I think it's going to take a lot more money and time to shoot. Is there any other questions, or keep going?
There are none in the chat at this time.
Come on, you guys. Give me a question. Do something. Help me here. So let's go back to the dimmer tech. For the dimmer tech, and this is a whole new job, and I'm going into this because this could be something the students could get into. It really isn't that much part of what we train right now, but I see it ramping up really quickly. So a dimmer tech has many different functions. One, he has to program the lights, and it literally is binary code, 0s and 1s. But they now have subroutines, just like when they started, you had binary programming for computers, and then there was like BASIC and Fortran and all these languages that basically condense that programming process. They're going to be doing that. They have that now in this arena as well. But they have to set up their own intranet. I think I'm saying it correctly. So what it is it's a wireless internet that's not connected to the outside world. So that inside the stage, they hook up all the transmitters, just like you would have outside in a Wi-Fi environment or in your house, but it's set up around, and so everything talks to each other via remote wireless. Now, they do hardwire a few items that are a little finicky still, and the technology is not quite up to speed, but it's getting there very quickly. Everything's shifting to LEDs. So what does that do to the needs on set? Just right off the bat, can anybody say if I go to a full LED set or do some kind of a tungsten set that's got an LED dimmer, or not LED, but a digital dimmer that can be run off of DMX, what does that do to other departments that are working on the movie? Any ideas?
It makes them obsolete.
Maybe not obsolete, but it sure cuts back on their workflow. So if you've got just regular electricians, and they call them juicers, that come out there and they run all that, distribution I showed you with the big boxes and the plugs and all that. Well, that's great when you have a 12K that uses 100 amps of power to run it. That's great. But when you're using LED, the whole set can be run on 100 amps, not just one light. So what does that mean? There's a lot less distribution. The power requirements for sound stages are a lot less equipment you're going to carry, a lot different equipment. So now people that know the tungsten world or the, Kinoflow, the tube lighting, even some of those, they're going to see a shift in technology that's going to allow, a big change. Then if you're doing smart light technology where I can move a light anywhere I want it. So let's say I reblock a character, and instead of stopping in the doorway, he walks 3 feet forward. Well, what problem does that cause? Normally, I'd get a bunch of electricians and grips to get together, go up, refocus all the lights, reset all the, the control, the flags, the scrims, all the pieces that control light. But now I don't have to. With a push of a button on an iPad, I can sit there and change all of that right there. I don't need a person to climb a ladder. So the technology, although it takes a long time to set it up in advance, it helps in production, especially in this post-pandemic era that we're going into. We're getting ready to start back again in this industry. It's going to change how things look and how things are done. I see a huge increase in that craft. Understanding how to program it, understanding how to set up wireless networks, how that all works together, how to fix LED lights, how to debug DMX systems. All of those things which are not normal to the electric and lighting side are going to be critical for production moving forward. So if we want to stay current, we're going to have to come up with some new training to get down to you guys that cover these. But part of this conversation is to let you know about it. You can look it up online. You can see what the pieces are, and you can still get your kids. If they're super computer savvy and real techie, that's going to be a great field for them to get into.
Got a question from the chat for you. Is the dimmer tech similar to a lighting emulator?
A lighting emulator. So what is that? What is that come from television? A lighting emulator.
Yeah, Elation makes an emulator that you can install on a computer to control all DMX lighting with that program, just on a computer.
Yeah, they use Hog. They use Hog and something else. I can't remember what the two main programs are. They're pretty standard. They have dimmer boards and they come in and program them in. I'm not with emulator for major motion pictures, but yeah, that's just software, the interface, and they'll need to learn those different softwares. But there's two main ones, and I apologize, I can't remember the second. I'm just having a brain fart. One is Hog. I know that for sure.
Is the other one MA?
It might be.
Okay.
Yeah, now I wish I could text my son and ask him because he would.
So another question for you from the chat. Randy wants to know, how do folks get into the quote industry? Do they join the union and apply? How does that work?
For years, it's been done through basically who you know, and you got to work your way in and you work your way up. Where we've done through the Georgia Film Academy that's kind of unique is we provide on-set internships. It's a highly competitive process, but when you go through the classes here, and you don't have to get a 4-year degree to work in the film industry, by the way. I know some of my cohorts here at the Board of Regents, I don't always like me to say that, but it's not essential. I have a 4-year degree. I even have a teaching certificate. I'm a better person for it. I've been able to do my job better because of it. But I also know guys that 30-some years in the industry, they have a high school diploma. And they're making huge money, So I don't know that it's essential. So to get back to the job, if you're coming through our classes and you do really well and you're in the top probably 20%, you'll be eligible for a competitive internship where you have to go and interview on set, but you'll get to be put in these covered craft areas and meet union people. So the same way to get in the union is the same as it always is. You have to pay your initiation fee and someone sponsors you. So you have to get 2 people to sponsor you. And the best way to do that is to meet people and show them what you got. The internship is a great way to do that. The other way is to getting in as a production assistant. And again, showing people that you've got work ethic. If I have anything, as important as skills are to this industry, work ethic to me is almost more important. If they don't have a good work ethic, then they're not going to last 5 minutes in this industry. This industry is hard. And when you're standing out there and it's freezing cold and you're outside for 12 hours and you've got to have a good attitude. You've got to have a good work ethic because the job's got to get done. If you're cold, bring a heavier sweatshirt tomorrow. If it's raining, you're getting wet, well, you should have brought a raincoat or a poncho. You'll learn that part really quick. But it's the fact that you stick in there, you do it, you have a good attitude, is the most important thing. It's work ethic, work ethic, work ethic. So even if the kids come out with very little skills, if they've got a good work environment, or they've come from a good work environment where that's been instilled in them, then that's a key to success. But you still have to be sponsored in. You still have to pay your dues. Depending on the market, you can pay your dues over a time period. It can be deducted from your salary. I think the dues are about $1,500 to get in the union. That's kind of where it is here in Georgia. There's different numbers. There are different number unions as well. I don't know if you know that. 479 covers the grip and the electric and the onset and a lot of pieces like that. The 600 handles camera, 700 handles post, and I think it's 9 makeup out of New York. I can't remember the number. It's 900 something. But Georgia doesn't have a local makeup union. It's run out of New York.
There are no other questions right now.
Wow. Well, I got a whole 10 minutes, and I've gone through my part. I kind of thought there'd be a few more questions. Do we want to talk a little bit about some of our struggles that we're seeing regarding coming back into the classroom? Would that be helpful at all to you guys? I know we're not setting, first off, let me say, I'm not setting the process and protocol, but I can share with you some of our struggles in a way, because I mean, it's going to be tough. We've been teaching all summer. We're teaching in a hybrid, in an online format only. And the Board of Regents has announced, the Chancellor has announced, we'll be back in full force in the fall. I would imagine most of your schools have pretty much said the same. Is that correct? Okay.
No, they haven't. Most haven't said anything at this point.
Oh, well, good. Nothing like being in the dark, right, Tom? That's
yeah.
The reason is it's hard, man. Think about it for a second. How am I going to teach a classroom of post-production, right, in a room full of computers and maintain a 6-foot social distancing environment? I don't know about you, but I remember just redoing that classroom at one point and rewiring it was like $20-something thousand. So when you start, putting those kind of dollar figures, how do you do it? We'll go forward on that one. We're using, leave it up to private industry to come up with the solution, right? Has anybody looked about poker in Vegas and how they're getting back into the work? They put plexi between all the players. So what we've come up with is an idea. I know I love leave it to the industry, but that, let's be creative. We're thinking about putting plexi around all the stations so that students can be somewhat isolated. We still are going to have to probably every other space. It makes it harder. So now we're looking at reduced class sizes, which I don't even know how the public school system is going to handle that. I mean, how? How could they do it? How could they're not going to hire double the teachers. So the other thing we talked about in that environment is staggering the instruction so that you instruct half the students for so many hours and the other half for so many hours in that environment, and do a staggered A/B kind of day. Some students come on Monday, some come on Tuesday, another group comes on Wednesday. And that's one of the things that we're looking at as a possible option for if we have to be in class. I think where everybody's leaning here is more of a hybrid model. I see that as much more feasible. If we go online, full online, that's pretty easy. We've been doing that now since the back half of the spring semester and all summer. So I think we've got that model pretty well, put together. The hybrid model would be probably 80% of your time online or 70%, and then 30% in person in small groups of 6. We would set up so that social distancing could be, taken care of. With 6 people and an instructor, it's easy to do access to the building. You start looking at how do you get 30 kids into a building, maintain social distancing, check their temperature, make sure they're properly, have their masks and everything on properly. they get into the classroom along with 5 other classrooms of people trying to do the same thing. I mean, to me, that makes my head hurt trying to figure out, well, how's that going to happen? You know, we talked about spacing people outside, putting squares in the parking lot, you know, kind of like when you do a fire drill. You put everybody out in the parking lot and then walk them in a little at a time. Well, that'll take half your day just getting the students into the classroom. So it's going to be interesting to see what protocols and processes they put in place. I really see a hybrid model being something that should be really successful for us, because a lot of your classroom delivery can be done in an online format effectively. And if it's a lot of material, like I know for you guys, you're giving them a lot of material compared to maybe some courses. If you want to get them through all the curriculum, right? It's a lot. They take in a lot of data. They can, if all of that can be recorded, it can be set aside. They can go back and look at it another time. If you stagger and do the hybrid, you can have part of your class can actually come and be part of a lecture. You record it. The rest of the class can be online. There's a lot of ways I think we can work around those. I just don't see in our standard classrooms being able to maintain 6-foot social distancing, which, by the way, the CDC does say that even at 6 feet, you're supposed to wear a mask. So you guys know that, right? There's a lot of misconceptions. Media gives you a lot of misconceptions. Social media is just, you know, it's kind of like statistics, lies, more lies, and then damn lies. And then, you know, so that's what you get in social media. But you got to realize that you just look to where the main information and science is coming from, and try to ignore the politicizing of all of these issues for the safety of the students. And that's what we've been trying to do here. So you're supposed to have a mask and social distance 6 feet at the same time. So that's the recommendation from the CDC, actually up to 8 feet in certain environments. So in your classroom, if it's a tight classroom, you probably also need an air scrubber. That's something that we're putting in a couple of our rooms. If you use the proper filtration system, then it will catch any virus that happens to be airborne or get stirred up. And I believe the new science coming out is the surfaces aren't near as contagious as they first predicted they were. It's a little harder to get it off of a surface. So again, all of these will come into play. There still has to be wiping down, sanitizing between uses of equipment. All of that's still going to have to be put into play. I don't think I was very encouraging with that little bit of information. So really, let's just stay on the line. That seems like a feasible way. But I know the kids want to get back and do stuff, so that's hard.
Scott, Bill Phelps asks, are there any PA courses for high school students?
PA courses. You know what? Not really. First off, I don't know if you know this or not, but unless you're 18 years old, you're not going to get hired on a film. So to tell students that they can probably come straight out of high school and go to work in the industry is probably a little bit not accurate. They maybe could go to work in some form of video, some form of content work. But in major motion pictures, they're going to be straight. And I have a feeling with this new COVID thing, they could even bump it up higher. I mean, I really see a world where they could be 21. Just because, you know, they're looking for a little bit of maturity, because it's not just, you know, letting them know what the protocols are, it's maintaining them. And for me, we've been shooting, you know, like I said, for the last 6 to 8 weeks. It's hard. Once you start thinking about what you're doing, it's easy to let your guard down. And I've made mistakes. Other crew members have made mistakes. You know, walk out of the bathroom and forget to put your mask back on. It's so easy to make an error in this environment when you're thinking about your job. You're not thinking about safety all the time. So it's about kind of recreating that. There really isn't a PA training. There's a bunch of boot camps and stuff out there. I try to stay away from it, but we are looking to do summer camps. I think you'll see that. I don't know if next year we'll be able to do that just because of the environment we're in. But I know that's something that's on Josh's radar, something I've wanted to do for a long time, is to create a secondary, it's basically you could send students to do a summer camp, which would be an intensive in film and television production, which would be pretty close to a PA kind of a boot camp. But again, they're not going to get work unless they're really exceptional coming out of high school, because that maturity level just isn't there to work in that environment. I mean, they're spending on a low budget film, it's about maybe 50,000, 25,000 an hour. On a major motion picture, it could be up to $1 million an hour. You know, it's not playtime. I mean, it's serious work. So that's, you know, when money's on the line, they need maturity. Does that help answer that? You got another one?
Bill says yes.
Okay, yes, I see. I'm seeing where it is coming in now. Good. All right.
There you go. There are no other questions.
All right.
Actually, I missed one earlier, or I missed a couple. Sorry. Bill also asked about the lights being motorized for directionality.
Yeah, they have that now. If you notice any of the concert lights, or that's a technology that came out of, you know, our big concerts. They're all motorized. It's all saying the same DMX programming is being used. And you see those lights are being adapted. I encourage you to, this year, we're not going to have a Cinegear because of the virus. Next year, there'll be a Cinegear, and it'll be hosted here at Pinewood Studios in our stage. I encourage you to come and see all the latest in the new technologies. It's amazing what they're doing. Everything is going to motorized. Everything is going to controlled by DMX. I mean, the whole thing is LED. It's absolutely amazing. They've got blimps. They fly up in the air that could light a football stadium. And they're all LEDs on the inside of the blimp. You just fill it up with helium, is it helium or hydrogen? Whatever's not flammable. Helium, you send it up in the air, you turn it on, and you can plug the whole thing into a 20 amp house outlet. It's absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. Great technology. But yeah, I think it's all going there. Every bit of it's going motorized.
Coming off of the back of that, Jason wanted to know, does the new lighting system use ceiling mounted lights or more so than C-stands? Do they need to move or adjust any lights when setting up a new camera angle?
What they try to do is when they do the design work, if you're on a stage, they're going to set it up. You're going to put a grid over your set, and you're going to hang a lot of it up in the air. If you're on location, it's going to be more based on stands, because it's not permanent. You're only in there for a day or two or whatever. So it'll be more mobile. But they try to think out the design so that they don't have to change any stands during production. It's just moving the lights. So in the design, it's designed differently in pre-production for what are they going to do in that environment. So there'll be very, very little moving of stands unless there's a mistake made, or maybe the director has a creative decision. He wants to move the camera from where it was originally, stationed in the pre-production to another place. Then they'll have to readjust lighting.
Cool. And one more before we get out of here. Tyson wanted to know if there is an intro dimmer tech package, lights, etc., that you might recommend with a high school budget, $1,000 to $2,000.
I do not have that information, but I'll tell you what I will do. I'll get with Josh, and maybe Tom, you could pop Josh and I a note. That's a really good thing. I probably should do that. We're hoping to add some of this. There's a lot of low-end DMX where you could just train, just like dimmer boards for concerts, for small theaters, small venues. But it's not going to really give you the feel for it. Hog and those boards are super expensive. My son just bought one for $200,000. So, and it's not a big board. I just don't have the answer for that, but I will find out something for you, and let's see if we can find out a way to incorporate that into our training. And one thing I'd like to do is, any of y'all have taken the class in the past, we're going to try to set up, if we add a new module like this, getting an opportunity for y'all to come in and maybe experience that module online or something, so you can pick up some of that training, because I know you're not going to want to come and do the whole course again. Maybe you will. I don't know. But yeah, we'll try to work out some way to make that available to our existing folks here that have taken the course.
Excellent. And I think I got everything. Tyson says he misses the cafe food. So I think that's it. So
good. Well, listen, thanks again, guys, for allowing me to be here. Like I said, I have taught in that environment. I have my technology ed certification for high school. That is not an easy job. My hat is off to you. But it's such an important job. I just want to encourage you that, you're making a difference in these kids' lives bigger than you can imagine. So because you're sparking them and giving them a skill set and a hope that there can be something they can do that's outside their current understanding of what the future holds. So thank you for what you do. I'm greatly appreciated for it, and keep up the good work, and we'll all make it through together. Okay.
Thanks, Scott.
All right. Y'all take care.